Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday to you. As I thought it would be a pretty good week here this week, and it's turning out to be that way. We need an Easter present, and we're kind of getting it this week. Believe tomorrow will be the last trading day of the week, as traditionally the markets are closed for Good Friday, and I hope you're prepping or doing the best you can for your Passover as well as your Easter celebrations coming up. We're trying to keep good spirits here. Going to be doing some things to celebrate the day as best as we can. It's now time. We've had the initial shock waves of a market, a virtual, an absolute collapse in March of 2020, followed by a late March and so far into April. Pretty nice recovery. We've recaptured had a nice 20% move here, and a lot of optimism is starting to creep back into the economy, and I think that is a really good thing. It's taken a Herculean effort on the part of the United States Federal Reserve as well as the Treasury to break all kinds of new grounds, to put a nice big feather pillow underneath of all assets that normally may have gone bad in a record amount of time. Municipal bonds, cheap rated corporate bonds, things of that nature. But now the question is, although that has a good effect in the short term and it makes everybody feel like things are stabilizing in the earthquake, we have to think about what are the ramifications of those kind of moves in the long term. Are we just now moving to a point where we're going to be forestalling future problems? In other words, if some of this debt is already weakened, and if we're putting the reserves of the United States federal government behind that, how long can we sustain that? How long can that go on before the ramifications of saving the economy start to come home to roost in other ways that we haven't imagined yet in terms of the dollar, trade? There's so many different moving parts. It's almost like a 200 ring instead of a 3-ring circus. It's a 200 ring moving circus. We have fallout on the dairy farms in America, and ranchers trying to make sure they secure feed for their herds, and at the same time we're competing to pump out massive quantities of shelf-stable food items, and the demands on the grain markets and things like that are starting to now ripple through in the economy. That's just one of the 200 rings that are out there. And the main one, of course, is we don't know how long these lockdowns are going to last. It's one thing to put temporary, an extra $600 a week into people's paycheck, which is a good thing in the short term, but it's going to it's going to lay open the possibility of long-term structural unemployment, because now having given that benefit, it may be hard to take that away or to modify that, as history shows. Federal benefits that are taken are difficult to sometimes claw back, and we may need to move into a different form of aid to people. May not be able to sustain those type of payments if things continue and the rates of infection grow in the United States as they have been. They're being tamped down in some areas, but they're growing in others. The governor of Kansas, for example, asked people to specifically not to go to Easter services and to congregate. Now, I know that's a big thing for people, and it's a nice thing on Easter to be able to congregate and celebrate, whether it's on a mountainside or whether it's in a church. Easter vigils and things like that, they're wonderful things. But the legislature of Kansas overrode her. And I hope it won't be one of those things like the parade in Philadelphia in October of 2000 and September of 1918, where they had a big parade to raise money through war bonds, and tens of thousands of people ended up getting sick, and 13,000 people died the following month. I'd hate to see something like that happen. So it's people exercising their constitutional rights, which is always a good thing, and then slamming into the realities of a pandemic. It definitely provides some points of friction. So it will be a personal decision whether people choose to congregate, and of course we hope they wear masks. We don't know what the real long-term implications are. I do know that the decline and the speed of the decline that occurred from our top on February 3rd on the market to an initial bottom of March 23rd was one of the steepest and fastest, if not the fastest, on record. Okay, it's not the kind of hole that's going to be climbed out of, and right now we're filling that hole with tremendous amounts of federal spending, federal backing, and state programs, and the market is now assessing whether that will be enough to turn the corner, and what will the effects be on that for the long term. We shall see. I suspect that we're going to have a more serious leg down as more of the dominoes begin to fall underlying the economy. This is why I continue to encourage people, if you have the chance to stock up on basic shelf-stable commodities, it may not be a question of shortages. It's going to be a question of prices starting to go up to ration these foodstuffs around the nation and around the world. So if you have the chance to really stock up, I still encourage people to. We're in this la-la land of feel-good right now, but we have to still be thinking like preppers and making sure that we are prepared and preparing ourselves against price shocks and things like that. So that's my main thought today, is continue to stay vigilant and continue to do the things that you've been doing as a prepper to prepare for what could be a difficult summer or a difficult fall. All of us hope for the best. Preppers do too, but preppers also understand that things don't always go according to plan, and sometimes they get poo-pooed for being alarmist or for having a black cloud over their head. But has already been borne out recently. Those that were prepared or sitting tight are doing pretty darn good. Those who've had to go out there in battles, now standing in long lines to get into grocery stores one at a time. Costco's, we have a food chain that's starting to fall ill now. Grocery workers are starting to fall ill. Supply workers at Amazon filling orders are getting more nervous, and more of them are becoming sicker by the day. And some distribution centers are now shutting down in the face of illness. We're slamming once again, and we're reaching that slamming point of business versus health. The need to continue to move forward in the economy versus personal health. And the vice president said, hey, if you're working at a plant, a meat plant or something like that, hey, you got to show up. That's your job, and that's true. But it does not necessarily mean that you have to put your life on the line and die. And I'm fearful as more people start to fall out in these type of factory situations, that we could see a real pinch on the production of food stuff. I don't know about you, but I'm not particularly good at taking raw wheat and making flour out of it, okay? Or drying massive quantities of corn, or taking soybeans and making soybean oil and soybean meal, and you know what I'm saying? We're all pretty dependent on what goes on the hog farms, the meat packaging plants, the grain processing mills, and things like that. So we better hope that things don't get worse, but as preppers, we have to always be prepared for what may come. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. Do not let down your guard. Okay? Thanks, everybody.